Zelfs niet.
Brutal first-person melee combat, hallucinations and serial killers. This is Condemned Criminal Origins. Atmosphere. The atmosphere, in my opinion, is the game's strongest asset. It's built upon exploring dark, isolated locations, abandoned schools, metro stations, and derelict farmhouses with nothing but your flashlight and taser. The feeling of loneliness and isolation runs throughout the game as you defend yourself from deranged killers and supernatural entities. The constant fear of someone lurking in the room with you puts the player firmly on edge. Collecting evidence, especially in the orchard near the end of the game, is a harrowing experience. Using a UV light to follow lines of text written in blood along the walls in the dark is a great way to build tension. Whilst the atmosphere is great, there are certain sections where nothing much is happening whilst you're looking for a fire axe or something to get through a door, and this tends to make the experience drag. However, that's still one Harry Mason. Scares. The scares are sporadic. It's mostly jump scares or the surprise appearance of an enemy, but when paired with the atmosphere, some of these are excellently done, like the locker scene, but some still feel cheap. Later into the game, the unexplained visual and auditory hallucinations put the fear of the unknown into the player, and there are some wonderfully creepy moments where shadows appear and then fade away silently, not drawing attention to themselves, but it's just unnatural and disturbing to see. Some of them feel overblown with long combat sections that feel more of a chore than anything. The enemy behaviour is sometimes really unique, with enemies disguising themselves as shop window mannequins and then stalking the player. Whilst combat with these enemies can sometimes be intense, the pattern of winning and the repetitiveness gets tiresome in combat-heavy areas. Often it feels, even though the game is relatively short, the scares are spread too thin. That's still one Harry Mason. Sound design. The sound design is very well done. There were moments I had to take my headphones off to make sure it wasn't happening in the room with me. You feel very immersed in the game with everything sounding realistic. From the disgusting sound of picking up bird remains which act as collectibles to the sound of fighting going on in other rooms, the effects are done extremely well. The music is a series of long haunting drones, pulses and dark ambient swells that add to the atmosphere excellently. It also uses silence effectively, leaving you sometimes in eerie nothingness. That's two Harry Masons. Gore. You're following serial killers, you're going to see a lot of messed up stuff. From missing fingers to severed arms, murder scenes, bodies, and then the collectible rotting birds around the place. There's occasions where you'll hit someone in combat and see chunks of flesh come off of them. Some of their faces are messed up and disturbing too. Whilst I think that the game engine didn't render the gore as well as it could have, what the game does contain is great. That's three Harry Masons. Story. FBI agent Ethan Thomas has been framed for the murder of two police officers and must track down the man who framed him and prevent him from killing others. But what about the mass bird deaths or the rampant violence on the streets? What about Ethan's hallucinations and the mysterious Malcolm Van Horn? There are a lot of great twists in this and unexpected turns to keep the game going nicely. The evidence collecting brings the story to life, making it seem like you really are tracking the guy down. It's an interesting enough story to support the game, making the final score 4 out of 5 Harry Masons. Condemned has its high points where I was wowed by what it did, but it also has a lot of wandering around and aimless meandering, and when the game is only 4 hours long, this is a drawback. Its atmosphere is still the best feature of the game, but even that fades after a while. Again, I'd like to remind you this whole thing is down to my opinion of horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I did get shivers watching shadows skulking around, I did not scream like a banshee or run away from the computer, and I advise you don't either. There'll be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. And always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.